When you look at how IP addresses are assigned to individual groups or companies, you need to take into consideration what types of classes of addresses there are. For the most part, we work with A through C. If a group was assigned a Class A address, this first segment here would be assigned to their network number. That would leave them all these numbers here to assign to individual computers. That would be called a Class A address, and if we look at the number of hosts, it would give us over 16 million that we could possibly assign. If we had a Class B address, the first 2 octets would be designated as the network number, and that would leave the group the last 2 octets to assign individual hosts. That would give us 64,516 total hosts that we could assign for a Class B address. Now if we were assigned a Class C address, that would mean that the first 3 octets are assigned to our network, and the last octet is assigned to individual hosts. And that would give us 254 possibilities. Now if you added all these numbers up, you'd realize that the possible amount of numbers you can have is actually 256, because if you start out with all zeros and then worked your way up to all ones, there'd be 256 possibilities. But when you're talking about networks, you're always going to lose 2 addresses, because all zeros, if this was all zeros, that would address the network. Some may call it the wire address. You know, what is that wire actually numbered? Even though the wire is not assigned a number, our network is. So if we put all zeros here, the machine's going to say, okay, that's the network you want to go to. So you lose that address. That's the networks. 255, where this would be all ones, is the broadcast address. So if you're on your individual network and you want to broadcast, where you send a message to every single machine on your local network, you would have your network number, and then this segment here would be all ones. So that cannot be assigned to an individual computer, because every time you go to send something to that individual computer, you're going to broadcast to every other computer on that network. So let's look over here at the different classes. A Class A address will have the first octet number between 1 and 126. So this is going to range between 1 and 126. That'll give us a total of 16,387,064 hosts. Our subnet mask is going to be 255.0.0.0. The first octet is going to be masked, because the rest is going to be host addresses. The next address, Class B addresses, start at 128. You'll notice that we're missing the 127, and 127 is actually a diagnostic number, where if we wanted to send a ping address to ourselves, we would type 127.0.0.1, and that's the local host address. So you can't assign a computer a 127 address for the first octet. So Class B ranges from 128 through 191, so that means the numbers in the first octet will have one of these numbers, anything in between. You have 64,516 possibilities, and your subnet mask is going to be 255.255.0.0. This is going to mask the first 2 octets. That'll leave these 2 for your host addresses. The Class C is going to range from 192 to 223. You have a total of 254 hosts that you can have. Your subnet mask is going to be 255.255.255.0. Typical assignments for A, B, and C would be A, possibly a government. Worldwide, you're only talking about 127 possibilities that you can have here. So that's not a lot of these that can go out. So these are very, very restrictive on who can get these, and they're just about out of them. A Class B address would be a very large corporation, and there's not a whole lot of Class B addresses available worldwide. There are some, but we're running out. Class C addresses might be an individual company. Say a company needs to have even 10 machines out there. What they can do is they can obtain a Class C IP address, and they have 254 machines they can have in there. The way most internet service providers work their IP addresses is they may have a couple of blocks of IP addresses, and when you log into them, they assign you an individual IP address that you have for that session. Once you disconnect, you no longer have that IP address. So they may have a block of, say, 1,000 IP addresses to hand out to the different customers. And they may have 5,000 customers. And their hope is that they don't have all 5,000 customers hooking up to their system at the same time, because they won't have enough IP addresses for all those customers. There's two other IP address classes, Class D and Class E. A Class D address is a multicasting address. Up until Windows 2000, you didn't see a whole lot of multicasting incorporated into operating systems. But now they're starting to incorporate it. What this does is it allows you to take a group of people and put them together, say everybody in your accounting department. And then what you can do as a multicast is you can send everybody in the accounting department the same exact message this way, and you can have like a conference call with, say, 10 computers if they are under the multicasting. But this is typically reserved, and you don't use it unless you want to multicast. The Class E is for research, and typical people will never have the opportunity to work with these particular addresses. What I'd like you to do when this video is over is go to a folder on your CD that's called Stuff. If you go into that folder, there is a document that you can bring up with your web browser, and it's labeled 01 space IP space address space classes. So it's called 01 IP address classes. This document looks very similar to what I've been working with here, and it gives you an opportunity to go through, look at these addresses, and determine what the classes are. Please take the time out to print this document out, determine the IP class, and then look at the next segment, because the next segment I'm going to have the solution for this particular assignment.